by the last slide, thankfully. Good afternoon. My name is Pete Whelan. I'm the CEO of InsideTrack. First of all, let me say to you, thank you for being here at 4 o'clock on the third day of this conference. You must have some form of endurance, athleticism. If you're able to digest and absorb any information whatsoever at this point, I applaud you. InsideTrack is a company we've been around for 16 years now, passionately focused on student success. And in particular, the concept that if you're focusing on the student and what the student requires to succeed, ultimately the institutional outcomes that we have had so many sessions over the last 2 or 3 days talking about in terms of enrollment, retention, graduation rates, et cetera, will fall into place. In particular, we focus on what we call the KSABs that are critical for a student to succeed both in higher education as well as beyond. That's knowledge, skills, attitudes, and belief. Knowledge could be simple stuff like registration happens next week. Make sure that you're signing up. How to navigate the often labyrinthine process of financial aid, when to file your FAFSA. Skills focus heavily on it could be study habits, it could be time management, it could be goal setting, self-advocacy. Attitudes are often focused around what does a student do when confronted with the inevitable obstacles that higher ed presents? Are they pursuing a growth mindset? Are they pursuing a fixed mindset? And beliefs is really focused on that concept of often belonging. What a lot of the research shows is that stopouts and dropouts often relate back to a sense that everyone else in this class belongs here, everyone else in this program belongs here, but for some reason I don't. I'm not college worthy, I'm not meant to be here, et cetera. So we focus heavily on a college coaching or a higher education coaching model that originally started focused on enrolled students, mainly towards the goal of retention. We've done more and more technology-enabled coaching that is throughout the student life cycle, as early as the expression of interest in higher education to help that student navigate the enrollment process, make smart decisions associated with which program to go to and why, and have them set up for success. We have all kinds of programs set up for enrolled students geared towards term-to-term retention, year-to-year retention, progression in terms of accumulation of credits, and then increasingly a lot of our coaching focuses on career. And not always just as you're approaching graduation, but trying to weave that career conversation earlier and earlier into the dialogue as students are deciding where to go and navigating that process. Again, if you focus on the student outcomes and what they need for success, the institutional outcomes fall into place. So ultimately, what we are ultimately measured on in terms of our results are we helping grow enrollment? Are we helping grow the right students for the right reasons in the right programs? And are they retaining? And we typically deliver these kinds of results in terms of roughly 10 to 15% improvement in enrollment, and then similar, often more than 10 to 15% improvement in retention and graduation. A little bit of a deep dive on our solutions. We have coaching programs where we're specifically taking either an entire student population or potentially a portion of those students. Our coaches are coaching those students alongside the advisors and other student support at the institution. On the far right side, training and consulting, we will apply our methodologies and our research to assist the actual advising resources at the institution to raise their game in terms of how they're working with their students. The capacity building is kind of our full enchilada program in the middle, which is basically saying, look, we'll bring our coaching, we'll bring our technology, we'll bring our training and consulting, and we'll work with your people to basically help you help yourselves over the long haul and get the similar kind of results to what we talked about on the prior slide. This is what we call the adaptive coaching model. This is where our solution has evolved significantly over that last 5, 10, 15 years. The original InsideTrack was heavily focused at the top of this pyramid. We call it intensive coaching. Mainly it was done by the phone. Again, mainly it was done for students who are already enrolled. What we realized pretty quickly is a couple things. One, if you want to work with more and more programs, and instead of tens of thousands of students, hundreds of thousands of students, you need something that's a bit more scalable and technology enabled. And really more importantly, how do students want to communicate these days? And that's not always by the phone, as I think everybody who has anybody in their household that's 15 to 23, and even the whole working adult and continuing study students who are older, they want to be communicated in a way that kind of is the when, where, and how they want to be communicated with, and that's technology enabled. So we were able to take an approach that uses kind of a very high-tech, high-touch approach at the top of the pyramid to a high-tech, low-touch approach at the base, where some of those things, like I was saying before, knowledge, the concept of when registration is, and a prompt associated with filing a FAFSA does not require a phone call and a long conversation. It requires a time-sensitive, conveniently accessible nudge or reminder to prompt that action. And then after that content, we can kind of see, is there follow-through on that or not, and escalate up and down the pyramid accordingly. This is what we have achieved over that period that is, again, 15, 16 years. We've coached in cumulative about 1.5 million students. We're currently working with over 1,600 programs in the US. We're now coaching students in every state and nearly 70 countries, and pretty much across the whole cross-section of higher ed. So right now, the clients and partners that we work with pretty much map onto an overall breakdown of higher ed. We work with 2-year programs, 4-year programs. We work with undergraduate students, graduate, master's programs. We work with all different kinds of populations and can tailor a particular service delivery to a population, whether that's low income, first generation, might be military, or we can coach an entire cohort or a program in its entirety, again, driven heavily by the pyramid concept, which enables us to apply those concepts to tens of thousands or potentially hundreds of thousands of students at once. The reason we've been able to grow and work with the kinds of clients that were on the prior slide is that we deliver results. So the slide 2 or 3 slides ago that talked about increasing graduation rates, increasing enrollment, is not just our own data. We've provided that data to various different public clearinghouses. We provided it to Stanford and MIT to do a meta research project on our results about 3 or 4 years ago. They validated all of them. So consistently, we're actually one of I think the only places focused on higher ed student retention that has research published in the What Works Clearinghouse at the Department of Education. So that's how we both get new clients and students to work with, as well as retain the ones that we have. And this is the announcement that was in red, embargoed on the first slide, which is as of Monday morning, we announced we were purchased by the Strata Education Network, which is the former USA Funds. And this is my 5th ASU GSV, and I can definitively say I am not raising money nor interested in acquisition anymore. So we're extreme, sorry if I disappointed anybody, but love to talk to folks about partnering. Delighted to be a part of the Strata Network and continue our passionate commitment to student success. Thanks very much.